Hello, hello. How are you guys? Good. We're getting people from Scott's workshop coming in. How did it go?
Until 10 looks great.
It was really, really good.
Yeah.
Although we were having a problem adding people to the in-class tutoring Canvas shell, but Samaya got to make a really good announcement. So yeah,
Good. Tim, Scott says yours looks good. I don't know what that means. The announcement. Okay. Sorry. Good. I'm glad it went so well. Let's see who's here. Try to take attendance. You all get credit. Hi, Tiffany. Hi, Malia. Kaylee, Tim, Natalie, Sophia, Brianna, Dorothy, AJ, of course. Give everybody a minute to get over here. I know you guys are probably going from one to the next here, huh? All right. And okay. Natalie B. There's two Natalies now. Gotta see who's here. Hi, Brianna. Hi, Alva. Okay, great. We get everybody? Okay. Awesome. I think I got everybody on the sheet. But all right, great. Oh, I'm sorry the winds are crazy, Brianna. That's no worries. Do what you can, and the recording will be here. So it does automatically record. So I always feel a little awkward when that's the case because it's just me sitting here for 5 minutes, before you guys got here. So yeah, but welcome to Citation Refresher. Welcome to Training Days if you're just coming in. This workshop in particular is really, really helpful because we do get every single citation style, it seems, at CI that exists. It's not all of them, but it's all the major ones. We all work with MLA, APA, Chicago Notes Bib, Chicago Author Date, ESA, ASA. Those are the big ones, I'd say. We do a lot of the training for this in the UNIV 299 course. So today, new tutors, this is going to be a bit overwhelming perhaps because it's our citation refresher. So we're just like touching base on everything. But I think it's really important that you come so that you can kind of see an overview. And I do want to emphasize that this is not to memorize everything. So does anyone here have every citation style memorized? Anyone? I definitely don't, okay? The most important thing to know is how to navigate the citation manual so that you can find that information and to have a general understanding of what each one kind of looks like or what they should be doing, right? So that's what this is for. We're going to go over the overview of these major ones and kind of say, okay, what do we need to know from each of these for sure so that we can go into our tutoring sessions with a base understanding here. Okay. All right, and let me just mark Samaya showed up. That's great. Okay, so on our website, we have these quick guides to citation styles that I'm going to send you in the chat right now because you are going to need this for part of our workshop today. So just have that handy, and new tutors, you want to familiarize yourself with these at some point. Let's see, who just showed up? I heard the ding. Okay, I don't know. If you just showed up, please add your name to the attendance. Okay. So let's get started today. Share my screen with you all. Can you all see this? Okay, awesome. So this is our WMC Citation Refresher 4-pack with our 4 most popular citations: APA, ASA, Chicago Notes Bib, and MLA. I want to take a second. Some of our experienced tutors like Dorothy and AJ, which one do you work with the most, would you say, at the WMC?
for me, definitely APA because we get there's a lot of different majors that use APA, and even some science classes will use American Psychological Association. So yeah, mostly that one.
I'd say MLA and APA. I get a pretty balanced mix of both.
Yeah, I hear you. MLA is the one that most people know the best coming into college or as freshmen. And then from there, they have to learn their discipline specific one. And Brianna says APA. Yeah, I would say the one that I work with the most as well is probably APA, although Chicago Notes Bib, not that there's so many people that work with it, but if they are working with it, I think they tend to come in for help because it's complicated. And so having a working familiarity is really important. And just to note that MLA did come out with a 9th edition last year. So it's still kind of new, the differences. So I want to make sure we highlight those today. And experienced tutors, please feel free to jump in with your experience at any point. Having you here is a really nice resource for the new tutors and to just add your perspective. Okay, so our overview today, what is APA, ASA, MLA in Chicago? Why is it used? We'll go over some in-text and reference examples or comparisons, and we'll get a chance to practice a little bit here. Okay, so what are these different citation styles? Does anyone want to guess? Why do we use these? What is the point? Just to drive college students crazy, right? Have a bunch of different ones. Yes, to find and show sources, Dorothy said. That's right. Yeah, to give credit where credit is due, right? And also there's different ones for different disciplines because they feature different information and make it a priority. For example, in MLA, you're not going to see the year in an in-text citation because the year that a piece of literature is written, while it's important, it's not information that you need to know right away. Whereas something like APA, which is used in the sciences, you might need to know right away whether a study was conducted in 1952 or 2020. I mean, that's a pretty big difference in the sciences, right? And so depending on the discipline, you're going to use a different type of style, and it does affect the tone, the look, the organization, and the citation. So it's more than just the citation, it's the way that the paper is written in general. Okay, so APA is used, it stands for American Psychological Association. It's used by scholars in psychology, economics, criminology, business, and nursing, although sometimes it even crosses outside of this. For example, I did my PhD in English, but my dissertation was written in APA because I did an empirical study where I was collecting data. So therefore, it was a scientific study that needed to have a scientific citation style. ASA is the American Sociological Association, used by sociology. MLA is used in a bunch of different ones, kind of like APA, but English studies, foreign languages, comparative studies, and cultural studies. And then Chicago style is most popular in history, literature, art history, and sometimes other things as well. So, you know, it depends what you're writing exactly and what the professor is asking for at CI. Okay, so this is an overview of some of our visits to the WMC. And this is something that you definitely want to pay attention to because it shows how many different types of majors that we get. This is pretty accurate year after year, and it will dictate what kinds of citation styles come in. So you can see the majority of our visits last year in fall were from psychology, followed by management, sociology, communications, and then English. So most people come in with a familiarity in MLA, right, from English, which is totally normal. You know, I did too. I was an undergraduate tutor, most comfortable in MLA when I started, right? But then you look at who is coming into our center, and it really necessitates knowing these other styles, basically. So new tutors, you definitely want to familiarize yourself with the style guides. And like I said, we'll go over this more in depth in Unit 299. Okay, so our style guides are on the student resource page on our website. I did just give you the link in the chat, and we have quick guides to all the major styles used here at Channel Islands. Oops, there we go. Okay. Okay. Excuse me, sorry, I had a problem with my screen there. When reviewing references with students, you do want to ask them how they created their citations. Why is this so important? Anyone know?
Yes, because sometimes they use the generator machine and then it's a completely old software or it jumbles up. So they
Yes.
sometimes use that machine.
I got to tell you, I have tried these citation generators the last few years, especially, working here. I would love to find one that works. Wouldn't that be great? Like if there was a machine that could do this, why not? Right. But that's never been the case. And recently, the last like 2 years, Purdue Owl sold out on us. So they used to be a really reliable website where you could go and use their citation resources. And now they have this citation generator that is wildly inaccurate every time I've used it. There's at least 3 mistakes that are pretty major if you plug in a citation there and it spits it out. So it is an ad on their site. They do still have the general guidelines that you can scroll through and read, but I would just go straight to our quick guides because it's basically the same thing, except that we do not have a citation machine. So you want to make sure that you're directing students to our quick guides or to the books that we have in the center or online, and not to Purdue Owl because the citation machine is right there front and center and it is wrong every time, unfortunately. Anybody finds one that works, let me know. Okay. So yes, tell them do not use it. If they do use it, this is something you could go back and check with them. It could also be like a base, like if they're like, I don't want to start from ground zero, I want to start like with a basic citation. It does get some things right, but you got to be careful because then you're really looking for the fine details that might be wrong. Okay, so there's 2 types of citations that are in the actual writing of the paper themselves. Does anyone know what these are called? Not sure.
I know
That's
one of them.
okay.
I think it's in text, right? In text,
Yeah.
I'm looking on the other one.
You got it. Well, the general term for them is in-text citations. So that's the name for the term. Yeah. And Dorothy, you got one of them. Narrative is one, and then parenthetical is the other. So let me show you. This one is called a parenthetical citation. It just means that instead of using the author's names in the actual sentence, they put it in parentheses after the information that's from those authors. Okay, so you can see it's not necessarily at the end of the sentence, but it is after whatever information they got that's not from the author writing it. It's from these authors, Roche and Mervis, who they're referencing. Okay, that's a parenthetical one. And then here is one that's a narrative citation where they use the author's last names right in the text. And you'll see a lot of times people do this with like, according to Gillespie and Twitchell, right? Or something, and then they have the year there and they're citing that way. So that's a familiar way to do that. Both are fine. And there are different instances where you might use one over the other, depending on the style. But okay. Citing an APA/ASA/ESA. If you are citing in any of these, just as an overview, paraphrasing is preferred to quoting. So if you're working with students on these in-text citations, either one, the parenthetical or narrative, you are going to make sure that they don't have quotes if they're working in any of these citation styles. The professors here are usually pretty strict on this, and with good reason, because you're not really supposed to use quotes. You're supposed to integrate the information into the text, okay? That means that you don't need page references for in-text citations in these styles because you are putting the information in your own words. So that's really important with paraphrasing. You're not using the exact words and not putting the quotes. You're putting it in your own words as the writer and then citing it that way. Something that I like to do to encourage students and for myself to make sure I'm paraphrasing is to cover up the quote that I try to paraphrase and not look at it and write it in my own words. And inevitably, I can't remember exactly how they said it. And it usually turns out pretty different. And that's can be helpful. If it is too similar, you need to edit it. Okay. There also is no references to the article title or journal reference in the narrative citation. So you're never going to see something like in their article, asynchronous tutoring via voice thread in quotes, right? By so-and-so and so-and-so in the Journal of Multimodal Rhetorics or something. You don't need all that. That's all for the references page at the end. So all you need typically is the author's last name, and the year in these citation styles. Okay. All right. So in addition to the in-text citations, there's a list of sources that are cited in writing at the end of the paper, right? These are called references, works cited, literature cited, bibliography. It all depends on the citation style, but they're all the same general thing, right? What is the point of having this page with all these references? Any idea?
Would it be to kind of keep it organized, or if you need to double check or look later, you kind of have an area like a table of contents, but for your references?
Yeah, exactly. That's a good way of thinking about it. I like that, Brianna. Table of contents, but for your references. Yes. Can you imagine if we had to put all this information inside the text? Like, look at how long these citations are, right? If every time we wanted to cite somebody else's work and we had their name and the journal it was published in and what pages and what year and all that stuff, you would hardly be able to read the paper because it would be so full of these bulky citations. So the whole point is just to cite a little bit, to say, oh, this is the name that I'm pulling from and the year maybe, right? And then you can skip to the end to see exactly where they found it and what the title of it is called and all that information. It's just a little reference point. Okay, so in-text citations, basics for APA. Paraphrasing does not require page references. All right. There is a comma between the last name and year of publication. So most of them look like this, right? Friedman, 1992. And if you have more than one author, you're going to use an ampersand. And we're kind of going to go through today and look at these different citation styles like this quickly. And just for a refresher on all of these, like I said, okay. So for APA, this is the in-text citation basics. All right. With 3 or more authors, you only need to cite the first author, and then you can use et al, meaning and everybody else throughout. And in the references page, you'll list them all out up to 20 authors. So it's quite a bit. But that's so that it doesn't, again, take up too much space, right? If you have more than one author in the same sentence, like let's say that, 3 different studies had the same results. Well, it's even better to cite all 3 than it is just one, right? Because if I have a study and I'm saying like, okay, I'm going to make something up totally random, right? But like granola is the best thing to eat for breakfast. Okay. And like one study found that, well, that's cool. Maybe it's true, right? But if I have 5 studies that found that, well, now like maybe there is real evidence for that, right? And so you're going to want to cite them all when I say that granola is the best thing for breakfast, right? And then you have all 5 studies. Okay. For the reference list, you call it references. It's listed by last name and first initial. APA cares a lot about gender bias. And so they have eliminated the first name to eliminate any bias that people might have about somebody's gender. And so they've done that for years. But I think it's kind of cool. So you're never saying like, Abigail Michelini or somebody's first name because of that. Okay. So this is an example of a reference list APA citation at the bottom here. And you can see that the information that's at the front is exactly what you're going to put in the text. So the in-text citation would look like what? Anybody know? Take a stab at it. Yeah, Dorothy got it. Hart and Rollins, 2011. So the reason why it's at the front here and the reason why we put that in the text is so you can find it. So when you see Hart and Rollins in the text, you can put your finger down that reference list and say, okay, it's alphabetical by last name. Where's H, Hart and Rollins? There it is, right? And you get the information quickly. So that's the whole point of that. Okay, basics for books. The titles of the books are italicized with capitalization for the first letter of the first word and the first letter of the first word in a subtitle. Okay, meaning if there's a colon and then another first word, they're going to capitalize that one. Everything else is lowercase unless it's a proper noun, as you can see in the example below here. Okay, and there's a pretty new thing with APA, excuse me, that you do not have to put the location. Okay, so you used to have to put where it was published. You no longer have to do that. Okay, basics for journal articles. This is probably the most common citation that we get, right? In college in general, citing peer-reviewed journal articles. Title of the journal article is not italicized. Again, the capitalization is the same rule. So you can see in the example, religious is capitalized and then A after the colon here, a meta-analysis. Everything else is lowercase. You're going to italicize the journal title. So Journal of Clinical Psychology and the volume number, which is 61. And then you make sure to include all these commas in the right place. Okay. Sometimes if I'm going to forget one, it's always between psychology and 61, that one right there. Every time almost. So yeah, we're all, again, you don't have to memorize this. You want to go through and make sure you're checking for these things. Okay. All right. Basics for online journals. You need to include the DOI. What is a DOI? Does anybody know what that is?
Kind of like
Digital object identifier, right? So what it stands for.
Yeah. What does that mean, AJ?
It's like can't remember exactly. It's like not like a stable link, is it? Like something that is consistently more
Mhm.
reliable than a HTTP link.
Yeah, than a regular URL. Yes,
Yeah.
you got it. Yeah, so whenever like a journal, let's say a peer-reviewed journal redoes their website or something, the URL changes sometimes. So it can, you can end up with a broken link. Has anybody ever had that, right? You click on a website, something, and it's broken. It's because something updated and then the URL changed and it no longer connects to that site. So that's a problem if you're trying to find a peer-reviewed journal article from a few years ago. And so they created these more stable DOIs, and they changed it from a couple of years ago, the 6th edition, where it was just the numbers because it wasn't clickable. And now the 7th edition, this is like a clickable link that you can click on from the paper and go straight to it. So include that HTTPS at the beginning. Okay, so where do we find the DOI here? Anybody see it?
under published by.
Yeah, that's right. You got it. So again, we're not going to copy and paste this just like this. We need to put it as the link. It also has a stable URL, but you don't want to put that unless there is no DOI. So sometimes people make the mistake of putting that instead. You want to actually put that HTTPS at the beginning, okay? //doi.org/ and then the numbers that you see. And you can copy that from there's plenty of examples in APA, so you don't have to like know that. Okay. All right. So again, yeah, sometimes students use the stable URL instead of the DOI. Okay, you don't have to put retrieved from or anything like that. If it does not have a DOI, you can use the stable link. So this would be an example for a website. This is a government website, the CDC, right? And then you would use the stable link here. It's a PDF. And only peer-reviewed journal articles have DOIs. So you're not going to see a DOI for everything. So if you're like, I don't see it, that's okay. It might depend on the type of citation. All right, other changes in 7th edition APA. You only use one space after a period at the end of the sentence. They're using gender neutral pronouns now. So they instead of he or she. This is again to protect gender bias between historically between women and men. But now between all genders. In labeling people, use specific and descriptive phrases like people living in poverty rather than the poor. This is like regular, I feel like that's common knowledge now, common etiquette. So that's good. You do not need the running head label on the title page anymore. And you don't need a running head at all in student papers anymore, unless it's required by the instructor. Any questions about APA? Okay, great. Let's go over ASA, a little bit different, parenthetical and in-text citation basics. We have the author's last name and the date of publication followed by the colon and a page number if it's a quote. Okay, so again, we're paraphrasing most of the time. So you're only going to need to use that page number if you have like a technical term that you're citing that's an exact quote because they have a term that they've coined or they invented or whatever it is. Okay, no comma between the last name and the year and no space between the year and the page number. So different than APA that way. If the author's name is in the text, you just provide the year and the page number like this in the parenthetical citation or the narrative citation, but in the parentheses. Okay, with 3 authors, you write out all authors' names the first time, and then the second time you can use et al. So APA you can always use et al. If it's 3 or more. That in ASA, you have to list it the first time. You do write out and rather than the ampersand. And with 4 or more authors, you can always use that all. The reference list is called references, just like APA. You have the last name and the first name written out. So a little bit different there, followed by the year. You're going to italicize the title. So APA, you did not, right? And you capitalize the first letter of all the nouns. It does look quite different here. Impossible subjects, illegal aliens, and the making of modern America. And then they do also still have that location there that APA got rid of. Okay. So common chapter in a book, you're going to use quotations around the chapter title followed by the page number. So if you're citing one chapter of a book written by multiple people, which happens a lot because they'll have like specialists in different areas, write the different chapters, and then they put together like an anthology or a book that's, you know, on a bigger subject, but then they have different subspecialties in it. Any questions on this so far? Okay. Journal articles, the reference list is by the last name and first name, so the same alphabetical. Italicize the journal article, capitalize the first letter of each word, so it's a little bit different than APA again, and use the DOI the old way that APA used to do it, where you put the DOI lowercase and then the period and a period following the numbers and all the numbers. It's not a live link. Okay. Volume number is also not italicized, and there is no comma there. Like I told you, I always forget in APA. Okay, page numbers. Page numbers in ASA have really interesting guidelines. So I always look this up when I'm about to, look something up and do the page numbers for it. They have rules for, dropping this first number, like 132 to 48. You would drop the 1 because it's the same range, that it's 148 without having to write it out. So you're going to look at the different examples of this in the book when this happens to you, because it is really tricky. Like for example, page 11102 to 11111 is different from the 08. You're going to spell it out when it's leading with a 0 because that's the rule. So look this up. I encourage you to look it up. I don't want to confuse everybody, but just make sure you look at the page numbers in ASA. Okay, quick quiz. Let me share this with you all. I'm going to stop sharing for a second so I can share the link. And go ahead and try your hand at this quiz. This is on APA and ASA. So you can go ahead and use the quick guides that I linked in the chat earlier, and I'll copy and paste those again. And take a moment and try to answer these questions correctly. And I'm not gonna, this is not a grade, I'm not gonna see what you put or anything, so don't worry. It's just practice, get your feet wet, get you a little bit familiar with these, or refresh your brain with some of these. How are we doing? Any questions? We can do this together. You don't have to do it alone.
This is Abigail. Can I actually have some help on number 3? So I've used an APA before, but I've actually never written an ASA before. So it's all really new.
Sure, that's great. Okay. I'm going to share my screen actually, just in the interest of time too. We can kind of go over these together quickly. So I'm on number 3 here for the answer. This is the one, right, Malia? Okay. So we're looking at the reference citation here. And right away, I know that it's different than APA, right? So here it is in APA format, DeLucci and Corrigan, comma, 2002. That's an APA reference. So I know that's not right, right? The other thing is the et al here. This is not right because there's only 2 authors. So I've eliminated that one. So now let's go back. Well, I know that C, you know, this third choice, this one has the colon. Is it correct, right? I have the 2 authors with the and instead of an ampersand, no comma, the year, colon, and the page number. Yep, that's right. That's ASA. Okay, so what if in ASA I didn't have the page number? It would look just like this, DeLucci and Corrigan, no ampersand, and the year. So I know those 2 are the possible correct answers for ASA. And that comes from just knowing the citation style. But again, you can look these things up, you know, look it up in the book or look it up on the quick guide and just, you're going to pay attention to those fine details, right? Is there an ampersand? Should they be using at all if there's an at all? What does the year look like? What does the page number look like? Is there a comma there? Is there not, you know, and because they're really close, APA and ASA.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Let's go over the other 2. All right. So select all possible answers for a correct in-text citation in APA. So a little bit different, right? We have 3 authors, so we can use the et al right away. We do not list them out. And then we have the year, or the parenthetical citation is going to use the et al right away as well with a comma and then the year. Those are correct. The other 2 are not because they don't use et al. All right, provide the correct citation below in APA style. So I know that the answer is D here because the thing that I looked at first for myself is just, are they capitalizing the title here? Because I know in APA, you don't capitalize every word. So boom, A and B are out, right? All right, let's look at C a little more closely here. Okay, and what is the problem here? We have the 73, the volume number is not italicized. So I know that the only possible one is D. Okay, and then the last one here. We have ASA. And again, something I'm going to look for again is this capitalization. It's probably the easiest thing to spot. ASA, we do capitalize the title. So B is out and D is out. So I know it's either A or C, right? And then I can look a little bit more closely and I can see, okay, what is, oh, look at this. They didn't put the names, and in ASA, you put the names spelled out. So then I know it's A. Does that make sense? Okay. No, this is highly detailed and there's a lot of information here. So again, just a refresher, don't worry. Let's move on here. All right. MLA, and we're going to have to rip through some of this a little bit here. Already running out of time. Okay. In-text citations in MLA. You all know this. You're saying you're familiar with this the most, right? At least some of you. You're going to put no comma between the last name and the page number, but that's what you include, that last name and page number. New for the 9th edition, you drop repeated numbers in the pages. So you can say 168 through 99. Okay. All right. From the 8th edition, 3 or more authors, you cite only the first author and then use et al throughout. Okay, so the 8th and 9th edition, you just go to the et al right away. The old version of it, you used to have to spell them out 2 versions ago. All right, you're going to use a semicolon to separate more than 2 authors, more than 1 author. You're going to don't use any commas except between the author and title of the work. And that's only if you are citing multiple references to the same author's work. So let's say Shelley is in your paper, but you're not only referencing Frankenstein, you're referencing another work written by Shelley as well. So then you have to put Frankenstein to delineate between the 2. That's when you're going to use that comma. Otherwise, you don't really use it. And if you need it for the lines or a section of the work, you'll use it here for lines, like in a poem or a paragraph that you're referencing. When would you use paragraph? Anyone know? That's going to be if it's like a web page or something and you don't have a page number. All right. Citing in prose versus using a parenthetical citation. It's very similar to the other styles. You can either put the author's name as a narrative citation and then the page number, or you can put the whole thing in the parentheses after you've cited the information from that author. Okay, basics for online journal articles. Here's our example down here. Like APA, you're going to include that link, the DOI link with the HTTP, okay? The DOI is not capitalized, but you are going to put a period at the end. All right. Okay, and here's another example, but with a stable URL. If it doesn't have a DOI, because it's not a journal article, right? Okay. Other changes, use only 1 space after the period. That's becoming more and more common. You see a trend. If you haven't noticed, we used to have to always use 2 spaces. Works cited should be its own page, and that is the title of the reference page at the end. You're going to write out if somebody was the editor or edited by instead of putting eds or ed like you do in APA. All right, and our new handout has examples. So please check that out for when you're working with MLA. Okay, so let's do a quick quiz together. Which of these answers below is a correct in-text citation for MLA? And anybody, let's answer out loud. Let's answer together. Okay. Got it, 50-50. Go ahead, yeah, please.
B.
B, why?
I hope I'm not wrong, but isn't it because of the et al that we're not putting everyone?
You got it, yeah.
Yay.
So the 3 or more authors, only the first author, and there's no comma. You see all the commas in the other one? There was like tons of commas. So you don't need those. Great job. Okay. There we go. All right. Which of the answers below is a correct works cited citation in MLA? They're almost identical, but there was a quick thing that was different that I didn't actually point out very well. And that is the DOI. So even though you are including this DOI link here with the period in MLA, you want to include that full link, okay, so that it works. Does that make sense? All right. All right, on to Chicago Notes Bib. Maybe the hardest one. Does this feel like the hardest one to anybody? Yes, not just me. Okay. Even like we do these in Unit 299 and even checking them, my head hurts. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay, like where does everything go, right? So yes, it is complicated, but again, the Chicago Manual of Style, we have a ton of them in our center. They have a really great website that you can look things up on, and we have our quick guide. So no, never fear. Okay. So you have, for Notes Bib, there's no parenthetical citation in the text. So all that stuff that we've been talking about for in-text citations, it's totally different for Notes Bib. Author date, Chicago does use that, but Notes Bib, you just use the footnotes. You're going to put little notes in it that look like this in yellow. The first reference to a source has its full bibliography written out in the notes section. And then if you reference it again, you can just put this ebid here. All right, you do tab the first thing here. And what that does in Microsoft Word a lot of times is it'll superscript the number. It'll make it real tiny and go up. You don't want to do that. You want a full number 1 or number 2 to be present there. Okay, so here is the difference between a note and the bibliography, which is the reference list at the end. They are really similar, very similar. You see, like it's almost the exact same information, except you're going to switch the last name of the first author to the end in the bibliography. You're going to do a hanging indent where the rest of it is indented except for that first line. Okay, you're going to use periods instead of commas. The note uses commas, the final citation uses periods, and then the page references follow the book title. All right, so the pages, instead of being at the end, they follow the book title here, and they follow the ASA style of numbers. So all those weird rules about numbers, you got to look it up in Chicago Notes Bib too. Okay, any questions on this one? Especially right here. Okay, it's okay. Breathe. New tutors, you look like you need to take a breath. It's okay. You're gonna learn this, and you don't have to memorize it. You know, again, this is. Do you guys memorize this? Anybody want to speak who's been tutoring with us, who might know how they feel? No, right? How do you manage all these citation styles?
Yeah, in my experience, you just take a real deep breath and you're like, okay, Tuti, we're gonna look at the book and manuals together, just like Brianna said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're a guide. The only thing you have to know as a tutor is how to navigate the manuals and quick guides. That's what you need to know. And you need to have a familiarity with it. Like if somebody handed you a paper and they're like, I'm using Chicago Notes Bib, and they have all those in-text citations, you should go, aha, this is not Chicago Notes Bib. I know they don't have those. So that kind of thing is important. But the details of it, you can look that up. I look it up. I don't have it memorized. Okay, so basics for books and Notes Bib, up to 3 authors, you write out the author's names in the notes. 4 or more, you get to use the et al. So you notice all the citation styles have different rules about this et al and how many names to spell out. So there's something that you would want to memorize to check on. Does that make sense? So if you're feeling overwhelmed about memorizing this, the takeaway here is check it, right? How many names are there? You see 3 names, boom, you know you got to look that up. But which citation style am I working with? Do I write out all those names for this one? You know, let's look it up so that the person gets it right, when they turn in their essay. All right. So again, here's the difference a little bit between the note and the bibliography. In the note, you get to say et al, and in the bibliography, you're still gonna spell it all out. Okay. Use our handout or the Chicago Manual Style online. They have a website that's really great that's connected to our website. Do not use Purdue OWL. They do have very inaccurate information, unfortunately, and it is problematic. So here is an example of an inaccurate citation. They didn't follow any of the page number guidelines here. That's consistent where they don't do that, and the link is not going to work. It doesn't have the HTTPS, okay? So this is using a citation machine, and you can see some of the problems that crop up. It's also not, doesn't have the hanging indent, so be careful of that. All right, you ready for a quick quiz? Let's try it together. So which of the answers below is the correct note citation for Chicago Notes Bib? There's something right off the bat here that should not look the way it does. B, oh, that's cute. B, very cute, Sophia. Why B, Sophia?
Isn't it because it's not supposed to have, oh, I don't remember what you call it, but like the little one, you're supposed to have the big one?
That's correct. Yeah, so right off the bat, I know, okay, it needs to have the full number 1 here, not the superscript. So that's, I don't even have to check anything else. I know that that's the one, right? B is the correct. If there's one that's correct, it's going to be that one. Okay. Also, you need the indentation, the first name followed by last name, commas, not periods, and write the issue number with a number NO. Okay. Whoops. Oh no, I gave it away. Okay. Which of the answers below is the correct bibliographic citation for Chicago Notes Bib? This is again another visual one. I don't even have to look at the details. I know one of these is right. Which one is it? A, Dorothy? Yeah, how do you know?
I figured because I think it's weird and different with the first author's name, and then the rest of the names are kind of just in the chronological order they'd be said.
Yes, yes, that's correct. And also there's a hanging indent here. So if this is in the bibliography, I know it needs to have a hanging indent, not the first line indented. That's it. I know that that's the correct one. Yeah, you got it, Kaylee. Good job. So this isn't totally the way you check a student paper, because you know that there might be other things wrong, right? But if you know that one of these is right, you can eliminate pretty quickly based on one of these things, right? But a couple of things that were wrong here, you need to have that hanging indent, last name followed by the first name, like Dorothy said, and periods, no commas in the bibliography. So again, that's something to check, right? Maybe you don't remember that it's periods or commas. I don't know, right? But it's something that is in your brain, like, I got to check that. Is that periods or commas or a mix? I can't remember. And let me check on that for the student. Let's work through that one together. All right. This is just a little quick comparison of names for the reference list across different styles. So APA and ASA, they're pretty similar in a lot of different ways. So you do have to be careful. They both call that list at the end the references. Chicago Notes Bib calls it a bibliography. ESA, which we didn't look at today and would be like the next most popular citation style, they call it literature cited, and MLA calls it works cited. So again, do we have to memorize this? No. What is the takeaway here? Yes, to get familiar with it and to know to check. So if you see somebody's using, literature cited, yeah, use your resources, yeah. Then you want to say, okay, is that right? What citation style are we working in? And let me check. Okay, a lot of the citation guides have examples in them. APA has the best examples now. They have a student paper example, professional paper example, MLA in the new book, they have examples. So you can look at the example. What does it say? All right, standard in-text citations or notes. If you're a notes bib, right, you have those no in-text citations. Everything's in those notes at the bottom of the page. For APA, it's going to be the last name, comma, year. ASA, last name, no comma, and year. And you don't need the page number most of the time. Why? You want to remember? Yes, because you're not using exact quotes, you're going to paraphrase. Great job, Kaylee. Okay. ESA, you have the last name followed by the year, no comma. So you can see it's very similar here to ASA. And then MLA, you're going to have the last name and the page number, because that's more important if you're citing a piece of literature. What page are you talking about so I can look it up? Not what year was it written, because that doesn't matter quite as much. Remember, they're front loading the information that's most important in that discipline. Okay. Multiple authors. These are those rules with the et al. So do you have to memorize this chart? No, I'll say it again, no. But this is a great chart to know that you need to look it up. And you could even take a screenshot of this or something if you want to, and see, okay, now I have like a little quick guide here, and I'll link these slides as well so that you have them. And this is something that's on our quick guide. It's in the books, of course, but it can be really helpful to know, okay, after how many am I using that et al? And what am I using between multiple authors? So in APA, you use an ampersand between multiple authors. ASA uses the word and this really does matter. Like people, this is something that matters between each citation style. Chicago Notes Bib uses and, ESA uses and MLA uses and. So APA is the only one using that ampersand. Okay. And there's all this, whether you cite them, when do you cite them all, and when do you use that all here at the bottom. All right. Quick comparison for the different ways that you would cite a book title. So whether you italicize the book title and whether you capitalize the letter, all the letters, or just the letters of the first word. What if I am citing a book and it's a book that I bought on Amazon, right? And I have a digital copy of it. And the book itself capitalizes every word in the title. Should I cite it the way that the book wrote it out, or should I cite it the way that the style guide says to cite it? If I'm working in like APA, let's say, because they don't capitalize each letter of the title. But what if the book title is capitalized like that when I look at it on the book itself? What do I do? Cite it the way it's on the book, or cite it, yeah, follow the style guide. That's right, yeah. Most book titles, they're gonna look like this, ASA. They're gonna have each major word capitalized. You're gonna follow the citation style. So a lot of students make this mistake where they say, well, that's the way it was on the book. And that makes sense, right? Well, yeah, you would think like you just copy and paste it, but you don't. You follow the style that you're using. So notice ESA also does not capitalize every word. They don't even capitalize that first word after a colon, whereas APA does. All right, so again, just something to pay attention to. You see a book, you see a journal article, you're gonna pay attention to whether it's capitalized or not and where it's capitalized. After the subtitle, the whole thing, not the whole thing. All right, and then journal volume numbers. This is another one that has a lot of differences across the different citation styles. So in APA, you're italicizing the volume number 61, and there's a comma between the journal title and 61 and a space before the page numbers. In ASA, no italics for the volume number, no comma following the journal title, use a colon between the pages, not a space, no space, and drop repeated numbers in pages like 150 to 59. Chicago Notes Bib, no comma following the journal title, use a colon before the pages, a space before the page numbers in this one, okay? And drop repeated numbers in the pages, all right? So just like ASA. ESA, you're gonna bold the volume number instead of italicize or leave it alone, right? No comma following journal title, colon before the pages, and no space. You notice these are all like mixes of each other. Like one has this, one has this, one has that. MLA, you're gonna write out the volume number and the NO for number and use PP for pages, but drop repeated page numbers. Whereas like ESA, you don't drop that 431, you have the whole number for both. All right. Any questions? Okay. And that is it, you guys, for our citation workshop overview here. I hope that I didn't overwhelm you too much. I hope that you feel like you know what to check now with different citation styles, and that for new tutors that you get a nice little overview that we're going to, again, dive into this more in depth in class. Any questions at all? We have a couple minutes. All right, well, thank you all. I'll let you go to your next workshop or get some lunch or whatever you're up to. And I might see some of you later today. Thank you.
Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Bye.